This is the DLR Cast, the essential podcast for fans of Diamond David Lee Roth. All right, folks, welcome once again to the DLR Cast, your only artisanal, 100% American-made, nearly all natural, save for a couple Diet Cokes podcast by and for fans of the mighty David Lee Roth. I'm joined, as always, by the debonair Darren Paltrowitz. Darren, what's happening?
Debonair. I don't think I've ever been called that before.
I almost went with delicious, but let's
demonic. Whatever it is, it's great as always to connect with you and talk about the latest and the greatest of the Toastmaster General of the Roth Army.
Absolutely. So I was thinking, looking at the date first off, we've got an amazing interview. Kudos to you again, where folks are just going to, I think there's going to be a couple what the fuck moments when people listen to this interview. We'll tease that. That's just one tease. We'll tease that in a second. But I was just thinking too, we're looking at the calendar. We are 8 weeks out from you hitting Vegas, doing 5 straight David Lee Roth shows. And two things. One, you just reminded me, and I just clearly my, attention addled brain here. I didn't realize that I just had in my head that the final show was New Year's Eve. But that's not it at all.
No, that's the first show.
That's the first show.
That's the first show. And we were talking about this off mic. It's not one of those things where Dave is going to be on stage at midnight going, Happy New Year. I think the show's over by 10. So right. Everything about this residency is just very unique.
As you put it, Dave can't share the spotlight with New Year's Eve.
Yeah, there's no special guests that we receive.
Well, because, we were speculating. I just think it's completely far-fetched. Well, maybe Alex will make an appearance. And in my head, I just thought, well, God, what a way to send it off. If this is retirement, I just assumed it was a dumb assumption. But I'm like, okay, if he's going to have any special guests, the final show is going to be New Year's Eve. Why wouldn't you do it on the biggest night of the year? No. Au contraire, mon frere. That's the first fucking show. I mean, what is it? What did you say? It was the 31st, the
5th, the 7th, and the 8th. So January 8th is the last.
The 8th. Who's going to be in Vegas besides you? A week after New Year's.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you do it like the 27th, the 29th? You know what I mean? It's like bizarre booking. I mean, I don't know what goes into it. Maybe they had to move some things around. I don't know. Maybe Tom Jones is doing so. Who the hell knows? Tom Jones is 103, but
boring though. And allegedly made the best album of his career. Like Tom Jones made a folk album or two.
I've heard that. Yes. Well, before we go, let's not go down the Tom Jones road, but
yeah.
But I know we've been planning some interviews and talking. I mean, a couple episodes. So as we get closer, we're gonna have to really take, as we keep learning more things, as this interview shows, as we keep learning more things about what and who we might see and maybe what you might hear for these shows coming up. We're going to keep talking about it, what I'm getting at, but we'll have to do like a bigger preview thing, 8 days, whatever it is. I mean, we're going to have a nice, great recap from you.
No, Vegas is now it's a 3-week trip. I mean, I don't think I talked about this on the air. If I did, I apologize for repeating myself, but summarizing it right here, we booked a trip to Vegas because there's just this great travel package, December 25 to 30. It was like so cheap, including the flight, that you go, this is a great thing. And then we were able to talk my parents into joining us. And then Roth announces his residency. And then we got, it starts the 31st. We're flying home the 30th. We'll extend this trip so we can see the first 2 shows. Then the retirement announcement comes and he's like, these are my last shows. And went, these are the last shows. I got to see them. I think I may have been intoxicated when I said that to my wife, and I expected her to laugh, but she said, "You're right. We should go." Like, oh, okay. So then you put it on the calendar. You go, that's just about 3 weeks in Vegas. That's a lot. And then
that is a lot.
My trip to Park City, Utah, which got postponed due to COVID stuff, not my COVID, other people's COVID. They offered me trip dates, which were the 2 days after we were supposed to fly home from Vegas. So then I packed the Park City onto that. And then I found out my employer wanted to do its week-long retreat in January for a week in Los Angeles. So I'm waiting to hear if I'm then going from Park City, Utah to LA. So I don't know who's going to have a crazier January, if it's me or DLR.
Jeez, dude, you're freaking like a touring musician, for God's sakes. You're doing residencies in places yourself.
I don't know what's going to happen in January, but the bottom line is my wife is very supportive, and she said yes.
Dude, you know what? Kudos to Mrs. Paltrowitz, because I got to tell you, anybody else. So, honey, guess what? Dave just, can we extend this trip? That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was not a planned thing. We were going anyway to Vegas, but not those dates. And most artists would kind of do like 5 shows in 6 nights or 5 shows in 5 nights, something like that. Not our hero, David Lee Roth. It's a very unique thing that starts on New Year's Eve. And we are at this point where we say we don't know if there's any openers. I don't think so. We don't know if there's special guests. We don't know if any of the shows have a theme. I mean, if you're seeing Fish, they tell you the Baker's Dozen. Each night is its own thing. We don't know. So I also don't know anybody else who's going to these shows. Every diehard I've ever met basically went, no, or I hate Vegas, or I've got kids. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I don't know who's going to these shows either.
What'll be interesting, well, there's a couple things. One, I'm assuming, I mean, the place will be packed even if they have to paper them. But after the announcement, I think certainly New Year's Eve is completely sold out.
I think they're all sold out except for a couple of marked up, quote unquote, platinum VIP Live Nation tickets.
Gotcha.
And
that's for the that's for the whales. Is that right? At the Vegas, For sure. Yeah. Everything was normally priced when it first went on sale. Then they repriced the tickets. Go ahead and sue me for that libel, Live Nation. They literally turned like $75 or $85 tickets into $450 tickets. Literally. Hey, it's the law of supply and demand, man. The price will be what the market will bear. And if the market will bear a lot, Live Nation, any company would take advantage of it.
I think you just did modus tollens from like 10th grade math. Like if A implies B, B and C, then A goes to C.
Probably. And then you give me about 5 more minutes, I might remember my high school locker combination now. So let's get to, so speaking of, all right. So this interview, you've got Michael Musselman, drummer for a little while with Dave. He did the Vegas dates back in 2020 and some Kiss shows. And there's some great information here, including some very interesting info that made me just go, what the fuck, regarding set lists and one song in particular.
Thank you. The roots of this one literally go back close to 2 years, where I saw him live because I didn't know who was in Dave's band when I first went to see them. And then, Dave says, 5 times on stage, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Musselman, Al Estrada. And you go, oh, okay, let's follow those people on Instagram. So I started messaging Mike Musselman like, hey, we should do an interview. Yeah, thanks. And no, we should really do an interview. Yeah, okay, sure, weirdo, weird David Lee Roth fan. And then ultimately he said yes. I think maybe I dropped the right names and or right conditions to it. But he said yes. And once we were on the line, couldn't have been nicer.
I was going to say, he sounds like a super cool guy. Just funny and smart and just one of those guys where you're like, damn, I would love to hang out with this guy anytime and talk about anything but Van Halen and Dave or whatever. So it just seems like a cool guy.
Totally. And it was interesting to hear outright how he basically got the gig due to former members of David Lee Roth's band.
That's super interesting too. And the fact that also, who was his drum teacher?
Yes. Do we spoil that or do you say?
Let's just drop it there. Greg Bissonette. So as we've learned, as we just do these interviews, it's like that Dave network of musicians, there's like a couple go-to guys that he always will go to who can, like Brett Tuggle, right?
Yeah.
And certainly Greg Bissonette. And then those guys, all right, well, we need a bait. Let's bring in Matt Bissonette. Or I know another, it's all, I mean, it's like that in so many industries, but in particular for a guy who's so insular as Dave and that as what appears to be that completely locked down Dave organization. I mean, networking is still a big thing, is how he finds out and gets people. And it's kind of interesting, just as we've learned the last few, the last year or two and getting these interviews.
But we've also learned as a result of this interview, without spoiling anything, that who the music director in the band was changed. The set list concept changed. The people in the band changed a few times. The format and configuration of the band changed. And also that the roots of the Vegas residency, or at least the way that Mike knew it, goes back to 2018. So it sounds like it was a year and a half in the making before it actually happened.
Yeah, but I was just thinking too, between this interview and then our last episode 44, the interview with Rocket Rashad and his drummer son Kane Rashad, we learned a lot about how Dave does things musically and the rehearsals and just a lot of different things like that, a lot of inner working stuff. And I love always in anything just how things work, learning how things work behind that curtain. And in Dave's case, it's a pretty thick, rarely unveiled curtain.
It's so intriguing to me that he put this in the statement about the retirement, that what was the term for doing the 70 rehearsals? A block?
A block, yes.
Yeah. So he's doing a block, but he's not necessarily at that block.
No, exactly. That's what dawned on me too after, we know he doesn't do sound checks, and I get that. But also, I'm sure obviously, if it's a brand new band, he's doing some rehearsals, right? You got to get the feel and the time and all that stuff. But I mean, if nothing else with Dave is that Boy Scout maxim, be prepared, is his entire, he is just going to work at something till he gets it. So he is always prepared to sing any Van Halen song, and he's got his own riffs, and, he'll go off on little improv bits, and we've seen the way he changes melodies and lyrics and kind of does a couple different things. And we've seen that with Van Halen too, as well. Like for instance, I actually love that Live from the Tokyo Dome. I think the performances are fantastic. But if you listen to Pretty Woman in the chorus of that, Dave goes up a register a bit in the chorus, and it makes it sound more poppier. I never heard him do that. Go back and listen to Pretty Woman when the chorus hits, right? People stop and see. And it's like, oh my God, that's how I hear it now all the time. I never heard him do that before, right? So he's always doing these little improv bits. And I would imagine that the first couple of times you got to get used to a band, and they got to get used to you a bit. But the rest of the time, he's so damn well prepared. If that band's dead on tight, he can step in with him. And if his voice is sounding good, it's going to kill.
Yeah. And all that totally contradicts the often stated thing of Dave can't sing, Dave doesn't have a voice, etc. It's just that he's entertaining himself, doing things how he feels in the moment.
Right. What's interesting? Go think of this. I mean, unless everybody's being considerably nice or very kind of being, what's the word I'm looking for? Being, I guess, neutral about it all.
Yeah.
But I've never read an interview. I've never read an interview, heard an interview, or hear any of the musicians play that he's played with say anything bad about his voice.
No. In fact, the latest wave of John 5 Press, he talks about how Dave never sounded better on the album that they made in the 21st century. And he sounds great on A Different Kind of Truth. And the Joe Rogan interview, he talks about going back to cross-training, aka vocal teaching. And I have tried to get his vocal teacher on this podcast. I don't know if she's under an NDA or I'm just not that appealing. We shall see. But the bottom line is he does actually study voice, and he has been studying voice since, I don't know, the late 70s or early 80s, which was the album where he started taking voice lessons. Any idea?
Well, if I remember, didn't Templeman want him to get voice lessons because, at the start of recording the first album or somewhere along that time frame there? I can't remember exactly, but I think Renoff's book mentions that because he was really green and just not a good vocalist in the beginning. So, I mean, this is a guy who took maybe, not all natural vocal ability and turned it into something. But I was just thinking too, I mean, even as vitriolic, is that a word? As the post Dave leaving Van Halen, when the feuding and all that, when they rarely had anything, there was, I mean, Alex and Edward would slag Dave almost how many interviews. And I don't remember them ever saying his voice is shot. He can't sing anyway. Do you know what I mean?
The only slagging related to that I can think of is he was talking about how Sammy had more vocal capabilities, so he could write things in different keys.
Oh, sure. That's a fact. Everybody knows that. That's totally.
Just because Sammy has an ultra amazing range doesn't mean that you're a bad singer because you can't do that same exact thing. It's a different skill set. In fact, some people might say Sammy Hagar sings too high. It's
right.
shrill on their ears.
I mean, when you think of it, I don't ever remember reading that, like, when they went on tour with 5150 or whatever, anybody ever saying, oh God, yeah, the 84 tour, Dave's voice, it was hit or miss, it sucked, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just, the only people who complain about Dave's voice are just everybody you would expect to complain about Dave's voice. It's just a common thing. It's just like there's some standards in life you're never going to get around. Death, taxes, which version, Gene and Paul and he whatever, people are always on, the whole Kiss. I mean, there's just some people that will never, that's their belief. Fine. That's their opinion. And by all means, you know what? At a certain age, things are tough. I mean, Paul Stanley's just not singing the way he used to. I get it. He gave you 50 years of just unbelievably powerful performances. I mean, you're just going to age. But for the most part, there's people are going to have bad nights. They're going to miss stuff. But I've always maintained that Dave's vocals have never been as shitty or as bad as a lot of the online proletariat, commentariat, whatever, would be going on since people got online.
100% agreed. And I was at the first two Vegas shows in 2020. No. I was at the second and the third Vegas show of 2020. So I didn't see the first one. And I watched the clips of the third show, my second show, on YouTube. And it sounded terrible on the phone. And I was thinking, like, that's not what it sounded like in the room at all.
Yeah. And I was just reminded, too, I mean, people don't realize this, but I remember on the Van Halen tour, one of the tours, whether it was Different Kind of Truth or whatever, maybe, that there was a couple nights there where Dave was pretty unhappy the fact that there was too much air conditioning in the room, right? And even in a big arena. And I thought about this the other day, and now I'm spacing. I was listening to a podcast the other day, it's a music podcast, and there was a singer that, I know what it was. I never knew this, but on like the last time the Who came around, I think it may have been Madison Square Garden or one of the shows, Roger Daltrey admonished the crowd because there was too much weed smoking, and it really affected his voice. People forget that these are not machines up there. These are real human beings with vocal cords at the age of 60 plus, for goodness sakes. So, I mean, when you're 22, you could do 3 shots of Jack Daniels, do a couple rails, you can get high, go out on stage, hit all the notes. When you're 60, 50, after how many hundreds of shows under your belt, you can't do that. So when a guy like can still hold it together, like I think Dave still does it, Steven Tyler to a good degree, certainly Robin Zander. And then I don't know, Glenn Hughes must have sold his soul to the devil, because that guy, Jesus, for all the stress that guy put on his body, that, in the 80s, that guy, and 90s, he snorted half of Brazil and Bolivia, for Christ's sake. And his stuff with the Dead Daisies and his solo album, that guy, that's a whole other stratosphere. I give these guys credit for I don't want to slag the guy, but here's one guy who's never been, I don't think was ever really that great, but like Vince Neil, Stephen Pearce, as much as I love Rattin and Motley Crue, especially Rat, always much rather would hear the vinyl, the live, the studio stuff. I'm always used to it, but kind of disappointed. It's like, there was some studio trickery in there over those years.
Yeah, I think
on those albums by those two guys.
On the lower end of the spectrum, you get a Vince Neil because he does not do anything to preserve himself.
I think you're right.
The same 12 songs he's been doing since 92, 93 when he left Motley Crue. It's the same show he's been doing. Aside from, do I have a new album? Do I have 2 new songs from the album to slip in? Okay, that's it. So he's doing the same exact song. So there's that. And the highest end of the spectrum, you have Robin Zander, who's not only killing it, but singing everything in the original key as well. And Robin Zander, Glenn Hughes, you have your superhuman people. I'm not saying Dave is at that level per se.
No, not at all.
But he's great. I'm looking forward to these shows. When he says he's preparing and training, I'm expecting him to put the work in. And we will report on that on a future episode.
Yeah. Let me backtrack one bit and give Vince Neil some credit. First time I saw them on the Theater of Pain tour, I was like, he sounds pretty cool. I was very surprised on that first big reunion tour they did in 2005, I think.
Yeah, 4 or 5, yeah.
He had taken care of himself. He looked good. He sounded real good. I don't know how much was backing tracks. I can never really tell half the time anyway. I'm probably 3 or 4 beers in anyway, but for the most part, I thought Vince sounded pretty good there. But I've seen plenty of stuff online where it's just like, oh man, especially his solo stuff. It's like, maybe he would readily admit, yeah, I probably could have taken care of my voice a little bit better over the years. And probably Dave could too. You know what? Jack Daniels through the years and smoking and a lot of blow over the years, that's going to take a bit of its toll. So, ergo, vis-a-vis, e.g., i.e., whatever the fuck we're talking about, I give Dave a little bit of more credit considering as far as how his vocals have maintained through the years. And I expect him to sound pretty damn good for these shows because he trains like a freaking boxer. If those last 5 shows are his title fight before he retires, I think he's going to sound great. Now, there's going to be a segment of people who won't admit it no matter what, but I think he's going to sound great.
He's going to sound so great. The reviews are going to be so great. Then he goes, I was kidding about the retirement thing. My next tour. And you go, oh. So you want him to be amazing, but not too amazing.
Well, you know what the out is, don't you? The out is, I thought of this because I saw Gene Simmons on Ridiculousness last night, and I was cracking up. I'm not sure if it was a new or old one because I've seen it on there before, but he's talking about the end of the road tour. He said, this is it, no more touring after this. That's the out. Because, yeah, we're not going to do any more big tours, but we can do residencies. Kiss is on the Kiss Cruise now. They already announced that there's going to be a Kiss Cruise next year.
They did? Oh,
I'm pretty sure I saw that, like the opening night. No one's ever said we're never going to play. I mean, whether or not Kiss is still wearing 70 pounds of gear, right? Who knows? They might be doing, but I could see them doing residencies are so much easier for bands and so much more cost effective. They don't have to freaking haul 4 semi-trucks worth of shit around. You know, they're not jumping in and out of planes and buses or whatever else. It's hard on the voice and hard on anybody, especially when you're just a couple years away from assisted living, for Christ's sakes. So, I mean, a residency is definitely a way to go, right? It's more stationary, and I could see Kiss doing that. They said no more touring. These big tour, right?
And I will be seeing Kiss during my 3 weeks or so in Vegas as well. I will be seeing one of those shows. I think we were talking about that off mic. There's a lot of blue on that Ticketmaster grid.
Yeah, that's one. I'll tell you, I've always had a tough time being a big Kiss fan. I remember seeing them, and I'm like, I just always. You don't want to see your heroes slip at all, right? So it would bum me out when I saw him on the Revenge tour that there was still upper seating available in like Worcester, Mass or wherever. So I'm like, damn it, this album's amazing. How come, or if they need a third band to come out to go on the road. I mean, same with Dave. I remember A Little Ain't Enough. We talked about this last episode, the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany with Cinderella and Extreme on the bill, half full. And I'm like, no. This is an amazing record. Come on. And then I'm disappointed he only did 2 songs off the record or whatever it was. And it was just,
yeah. I don't know what the answer is. It's if you're hiring me to bring people in the door, I know how I would get people in the door for Van Halen related content. I know how to do it, but if you're not paying me, I'm just going to sit here like a critic and be grouchy and still enjoy the show. So that's the plan for me. So, bring it back to Mike Musselman.
Yes, thank you.
We clarify at the beginning if it's Musselman. We clarified that at the beginning of the interview. That's not a spoiler. He's got a bright future ahead of him. He's a well-networked, well-liked guy who put in the work, who trained under the right people, who can play a variety of genres. Keith Urban is another one of his big credits. So I don't think it's the last that we've heard from him. I don't think that he's going to spend the rest of his career going, former David Lee Roth drummer.
No. He said something that really stood out to me. He said, I never got a gig because of my Instagram page or because of a video or whatever. He got it because he puts the work in. Yes. And people know that if you hire this guy, he's going to get the job done, and he's got a great rep for it.
Yes. So it was a great interview. He will not be the last former David Lee Roth band musician that we have on this podcast. Don't want to say more just yet. More to follow on that end, and nothing but yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's get after it. Let's get going to the Michael Musselman interview. Darren, you're killing it. Thank you. I love hearing these interviews, and we got some more good stuff coming up.
No, we're killing it. We're killing it. We are the #1 David Lee Roth podcast in the world. We are. So thank you for everyone for listening. Thanks for Steve for putting this all together. And if you are coming to a Vegas show, please tell us.
Yeah, shoot us an email at the DLRcast@outlook.com. Darren's thinking of doing some man on the street interviews.
Woman as well.
Yes, true. Yes.
Discriminate on gender right there.
Yes.
But,
sorry.
But yeah, if we know you're there, let's get you in there. Maybe we have a round table. I don't know. The sky's the limit.
Well, it's always going to be fun and interesting to find out what we got going on. Because hell, sometimes we don't even know.
Yeah, nothing but what was that? Nothing but that.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for taking the time, first and foremost. Are you dialing in from Los Angeles?
Yes.
Okay. An undisclosed Los Angeles location here, but you're off the road, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my goal here is to learn about the greatness that is, and I can't speak today, that is Mike Musselman.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not Musselman, it's Musselman, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because on stage in Vegas, I think Musselman was said like 5 times during the show. So,
well, yes, you could say it either way. Musselman is like if you wanted to make a point or an emphasis, but Musselman is
muscle, man. That kind of thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Fair. Well, I first learned about you from the Roth gig, but Keith Urban is another huge credit. The key is you're a steadily working drummer. Are you allowed to say what you're working on now, or is it all under NDAs?
No, I can say what I'm working on now. Everything's pretty loosey-goose in the world that I've operated in so far as a professional. There's a guitar player, composer, band leader named Zach Tabori.
Yes.
And he's got his own thing going on. I met him while we were working with somebody else, a guy named Teo, and we wrote a song for Will Smith's kid, Jaden.
Mm-hmm.
But Zach has his own band, and I guess I'm the drummer for it now. And that's what we're doing.
I've had the pleasure of interviewing Zach. That was like probably a mid to late 2020 interview where the publicist goes, here's the press release on this guy. And you look him up and you go, this guy's way too talented and way too smart to be doing what he's doing, but he's willing to take all the chances in the world. In other words, if the right audience finds Zach, he is the next Zappa. That's my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. I agree. Do you remember the publicist's name?
That Deborah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know her. Okay. I thought we shared the same person.
They sent me another pitch. I'm looking at my screen to see. They just pitched me Blues Traveler again, like an hour ago.
Oh, wow! I'd love to see Blues Traveler one day.
Yeah, it'll be a 3-hour show, but you'll see some virtuals.
Is that the thing? He just keeps going.
Yeah, that's one of those bands where they negotiate for more time on stage. Most bands are like, you want 75? Could we do 60? Cool.
Yeah.
60 plus an encore? Cool. And then Blues Traveler, if you said contractually you need 3 hours, they'll improvise the heck out of some harmonica solos.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, something I like to find out about drummers is there's the Bunny Carlos school of thought of we want to do a tight 60 to 70 minutes. And then there's the Blues Traveler thing of like, we love playing. It's the best part of the day. Where are you at? Can you play 3 hours if you need to?
If I were being paid, I would love to. But if I'm in my practice room, as you know, drumming is a physical thing. So it's I would need to break up those 3 hours. Playing drums, playing seriously, yes, I can do it, but I'd like to be able to do like an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes where I'm in it and then goof off for the other part. I don't know blues travelers, like I know the two famous songs, and I've always thought like if I was in, a Van Halen or a David Lee Roth type band, a 3-hour set would kick my ass. I would be taking ice baths every night. But if I was in like I don't want to blast any genre or artist, but I feel like if I was in like a reggae band, I could just play that beat for 6 hours straight. I could just be in that, just something relaxed.
Being an LA man about town on the drums, do you know Stacy Jones by any chance?
No.
He was in American Hi-Fi and Veruca Salt, but he's been Miley Cyrus's drummer and Matchbox 20's drummer. He's everybody's drummer on the planet if they want a drummer. And then this band, he sings and plays lead, and then he's A&R here. Cracks me up that he started off in a reggae band before all.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Whoa. Which reggae band?
It was something that happened when he was at Berkeley.
Okay.
I think it was a roommate, but you're a music school guy. So do you have to fight those tendencies if you have a gig like Roth or Keith Urban, those like habits that you get from going to a great music school?
Like what you're asking, like try to unlearn or just go out there and pedal to the metal as opposed to like, well, this is how you're supposed to play the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thankfully, we'll just use the DLR gig as a reference point for everything, I guess. But thankfully, Alex, his drumming isn't like, for that gig, no, I didn't have to unlearn anything. And the music school I went to was Musicians Institute. They teach the commercial side of music. They don't get, unless you like get a one-on-one lesson, they don't get too into the weeds with anything. They here's, you're with 60 kids for the next year and a half, 2 years, and you all learn the same exact shit, but it's to go out there and be a drummer and get the gigs.
Do they, because curriculums evolve in music schools over the years, is there anything, and this is a real question, do they teach anything about being a good hang these days?
Absolutely.
They do?
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is my drum teacher, who I don't know if there's anything on the internet because I don't think I've done any interviews. I studied under Greg Bissonette.
Oh, wow. Okay. There's the Roth connection.
So there'll be some connections, and we can get into how I met Greg and how that's the same person as how I got the gig. But Greg Bissonette is the nicest guy on the planet. He remembers you. If you haven't seen him in 7 years and you show up to the NAMM convention and big hugs. But he's the one who taught me, like, you don't want to be the diva or the asshole in the back of the van smoking a vape pen, choking everybody. You want to be basically either you'll be a fun hang or like neutral. You're not anything here nor there, you're just a good guy, Yeah, definitely. But Musicians Institute, there was never anything within the curriculum to say that, but all the teachers are gigging professionals, and they take you aside and they'll be like, hey, if you're going to get this gig, I think that just work on your attitude or whatever. I went there about 10 years ago. I graduated 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little foggy, but
Sure.
That's the long-winded way to say yes.
So you learned.
No, don't be an asshole.
Well, I thought I knew what was going on with that Roth Vegas gig until I taped an interview 2 weeks ago, and I uncovered a little bit of a mystery that I haven't heard anything about before that there was a band before you guys got the gig with Chris Griotti on guitar, and Brett Tuggle put that band together. Then I think there was we can't do these dates. Then he got a new band, which you were part of. And then the band changed again, and the band changed again.
Well, there's no secret that Dave is particular and has high standards. You mentioned Kane in the email.
Yeah.
And I've known Kane. I grew up in LA, and Kane's dad, Rocket.
Yes.
Is a guitar player. Rocket has worked with Brett, I think on the Chris Isaac stuff. I don't remember how they knew each other exactly, but I was in a band with Brett Tuggle's son.
Okay. The worlds keep connecting.
This is how it's all connected. I'm not just some random dude from the internet that they came across. It was just sort of in the making for many years. But Brett Tuggle's son and I were in a band, and we would always play shows with Kane's bands. They were playing before Golden Voice took over the Roxy on Sunset.
Yeah.
You could just go book a show there. You didn't have to be a Golden Voice artist. And so I was always playing with Kane. And then he was always his friends were dating some of my friends. And I was always seeing him. And when I found out that I think he was the first drummer for what those Vegas shows were going to be.
Yeah.
Was so stoked. I was like, he's going to nail it. I love watching him. He's so amazing. He studied under Greg Bissonette as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that what the story that he told was he had the gig. He checked the dates. He's like, can't do them. And when I mentioned Brett putting the band together, it was Danny Wagner on stage. So is it that the music director also changed as part of it, that Brett couldn't do the dates or didn't want to do the dates? You don't have to get specifics there.
Yeah. Well, so love Danny. Danny's been around a long time, and he's a pro. Yeah. Danny came on, I think everything moved really fast. There was a lot of not musical chairs, but a lot of positions being taken, and people coming in, not showing up the next day. We never knew what happened. But Danny was supposed to be the drum tech.
Okay, because to pause you right there, Danny, I think, is a much better drummer than a keyboard player, and he's a great keyboard player. When I watch some of those Warrant videos, right, keyboard behind this, he's playing I Saw Red, and then he turns around to the drum set. He's great.
He's great. We had a lot of fun. He's one of we all got along right away. Okay, we'll save that conversation. So Danny was supposed to be a tech, and he's a multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah. And
the world, we're I'm a drummer, but if someone needs a drum tech and the money is there, I'm a drum tech, and I'm gonna go do that. So there was, I think what happened was that Dave wanted instead of just one guitar player, he wanted two.
Yes.
Rhythm and lead. And so Brett started playing guitar on most of the songs, and then playing a Rhodes or B3 organ. I got a dog. You'll hear it bark. Waldo.
Where's Waldo?
Waldo.
That's not Waldo from the Hot for Teeth video, right?
No. You're only the second. Oh, you're only, not in any sarcastic way, you're only the second person to point that out. What am I trying to say? So Brett was switching between rhythm guitar and then keyboards when needed. Like, give me a second here.
The switching between guitar and keyboard. Oh, there's a long list of that. But I've never seen that in the Roth band before.
No, I don't think. I remember when Brian was the guitar player, and I was like 13. Relax. I was like 13 years old, and my Brett Tuggle's son was getting guitar lessons from Brian, but there was no keyboardist. It was drums, bass, guitar,
tracks,
and tracks, and just blow them away. Play loud, play fast. Let's do it. And then I think the, Brett is like just getting older, and this music requires a lot. It demands a lot from your body. Yeah. And we would rehearse 4 times a week, 5 times a week, like 4 or 5 hours, just hitting it over and over and over. And I think we wanted to keep Brett fresh. So it's like, let's give the rhythm guitar to Brett, and let's have Danny. He was doing keyboards, but when he wasn't doing keyboards, he was playing a lot of synthesized bass. He was covering the low end with his left hand. If you see some of the shows, he's just pressing. He's with one finger. He's going from note to note.
And that makes sense on something like Just Like Paradise, which I believe is keyboard based on the recording. I get what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, he would play keys on that for sure, with some dialed in patch where Brett was able to get the actual sound from some old weird floppy disk that's been converted, and now it's in his keyboard, his synth. But yeah. What was the question? I don't even remember.
So it all started with the shadow band that replaced the band, and how Brett went from putting together the band to being the keyboardist and putting it together with Danny drum teching, to somehow Brett being keyboard and guitar, to somehow Danny is on drum. Danny's now on keyboards, not just drum teching.
Yes, and what you just said was like 4 months. That wasn't like 1 month of thing. That was like all of this shit happened. And Griotti was the original. That was like, it started there. And then Griotti got his buddy and bandmate Ryan Wheeler. And then Jerry, the manager, called Brett, said, come be the boss of these youngins. Because I think Griotti had worked with this guy named Tom Sorowski at Henson Studios. And they remembered him from some random session and said, he's the guy. He's the guy. Griotti's the guy. He still is the guy, in my opinion. Yeah, young blood and all that. Writing hits for other people. Totally get it. Right. And Griotti knows Kane, and they tried Kane out, and then that didn't happen. And so Brett, I went to Brett's son. His son is Matt Tuggle, he's an audio engineer. I forgot who he works for now, but he's a professional. He used to work at Henson for like 7 years. Brett's son was having an engagement party, and I saw Brett there, and Brett said, "Mikey, what's going on with you? What's up?" And I said, "I have a show in Austin, Texas, and then I'm completely free." I think that was like 2018 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brett goes, "All right, well, look out in your email. I'm going to email you some stuff." And
I got to pause you there. 2018. So the Vegas residency was long in the works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Email in 2018.
Yeah. So Brett sends me an email and says, "Learn these songs." And it's Hot for Teacher, and it's Running with the Devil, and
so you get this list of songs to learn.
This list of songs, and you know, Brett has worked with everybody, and you know, Fleetwood Mac was going through some changes because they're kicking out Lindsey Buckingham, and they're getting Mike Campbell in there, and Brett and Lindsey are closer than Brett is with anybody else. So Brett kind of just, I think he was asked to like not hang around because there's anyway, I can't talk about that, but yeah. I thought Brett was going to say, "Hey, Lindsey's going on tour," and that would have blown my mind just as well. But he sends me Hot for Teacher, and I immediately know, holy shit, Dave is going out. It's happening. And I meet with Griotti and Ryan Wheeler in a rehearsal, a pay by the hour rehearsal space in Echo Park. And as I'm setting up, I set up a China symbol, and for some weird reason, it triggers Ryan Wheeler to play King Crimson. I forgot what the song was called, but it's from the album Red. Yeah. And I grew up listening to that shit, you know, bum, 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 bum. And I hit my China on accident while I'm setting it up, and he goes right into the riff, and I just go in with him, and I play until I can't remember what the hell happens next. And Ryan looked up at Griotti and just went, "He's got the gig." And, you know, we played Hard for Teacher and Running with the Devil and all that shit. And then we rehearsed with Brett, Griotti, and Ryan for like 3 weeks. We did not see Dave at all. Dave just wanted us to just grind it out and get together as a unit, to just kind of like his thought process behind the Eat 'em and Smile crew, the Billy Sheehan, Steve Vai, Bissonette, just make them sound like they've been together for 10 years when it's really been 6 months. So that's how it started. And it shape shifted and evolved in many ways. There was 3 guitar players on stage at one point.
Yes, that was going to be that was like 2 topics ahead. When he was first hyping up this Vegas residency, he said something like, "There's going to be 3 guitarists on stage, 2 keyboardists, and it's going to be a rotating thing of 30 plus songs from throughout the career." And you mentioned Hot for Teacher was the first thing you had to learn, and you guys did not play Hot for Teacher on that run. Whereas when I saw him live with Brian Young a bunch of times in the early 2000s, that was the opening song every single night.
Right.
So it sounds like everything changed: the lineup, the setup, the number of people that would be in the band, etc.
Yes. And it was all, if I had to guess what my old boss Dave was thinking, it's probably he's just looking for perfection, and he's like, what is it going to be? What is going to be the right combo? Because I'm at this point in my career, I'm in my 60s. Yeah. Am I gonna be doing splits on stage anymore? He wants it to, what is it now? And it still can be perfect. So yeah, we had a guitar player who's more of like a Keith Richards kind of guy, but he's so fucking cool. His name's Andrew Martin. And he's an amazing guitar player, and he worked with Griotti on a lot of stuff. And so there was one Friends and Family show where it was Brett doing keys and guitar, Andrew doing guitar, Chris Griotti doing guitar, and then Ryan and I doing our thing. Mm-hmm. And it was wild. It was a wild show.
Wow. So yeah. Everything changed over time. But did you have to learn like 30 to 40 songs? Was that part initially true, that it was going to be a revolving set list?
Totally. It was going to be a revolving set list. I don't think we got up to 30. We might have got up to 21 songs. I'm making that number up, but 30 seems like a lot. But Dave really, when it came to the shows, like we would write the set list like day of. He would sit us all together and we would eat some tacos and he'd just go, what do you guys want to play? And we would, because we're all fans.
Yeah.
We're fans of this legend that we're with. And he's just asking us, what do you guys want to do? And so we're like, Tobacco Road. We're shouting out some deep cuts from the solo stuff or from the Dave stuff or the Van Halen stuff. And he would be like, all right. And he would just be like, just shout out the song. I'll go with it. He'll know it. You'll know the song when it starts. He had some things that we did because we did Big Train, and that was something he really wanted to play. He made us make sure we knew Big Train. I should have taken my notes out because we would have these meetings. We'd go to his house and we'd write out all this stuff like it's a business that, oh, get on that, get on this. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that?
Yeah. Big Train it sounded great both of the nights I saw the tour, and it was a total surprise because that album, Your Filthy Little Mouth, maybe his least selling album of all the Warner stuff, maybe I don't know how that compares to DLR Band, but for example, from the DLR Band, at least Slam Dunk was a single that people knew per se. So that was an obscure, awesome song. And then otherwise it was pretty much the greatest hits of Dave, that show.
Yes. Yeah. There was one other, I'm going to just give it a quick little Google, that we were trying to get together, and I don't know why we'd never played it. David Lee Roth. Let me know if you know it. Let's see here. Albums.
Well, Yankee Rose was a big hit. I know he was doing that in the 2000s.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I don't know if anybody you've interviewed yet has said this. What he said about Yankee Rose, he said he thought it was too much of a novelty song. He thought it was you could only play that song on the 4th of July. Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking at a song. We learned "She's My Machine" from Your Filthy Little Mouth.
Yeah, wow, that's a surprising one.
It was surprising, and it was actually kind of like not your typical song structure. If I remember correctly, I feel like that song took a little bit more energy or brain power for me to remember everything that's happening.
Yeah, and what I'm starting to, a mystery that has also been needed to be unraveled is that he started recording that song with Bob Ezrin, even though the album was done with Bob Rock. And then that wasn't on that album. It was on the following album, which he did with Nile Rodgers. So I think that is a significant song to him when it survived like 3 producers, basically.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
Wow. So
those are the only 2 from that that album that we did.
Did you guys work on A Little Ain't Enough?
No. Did we play? I kind of forgot. Did we play Somebody Get Me a Doctor?
I believe you did. I know he was doing that in the 2000 stores. That and Beautiful Girls, I think, were the two like non-hits staples that you did. I think did he do DOA? No, in the 2000s he was doing DOA.
Well, yeah, we didn't do DOA.
So my next question related to all that is you were a fan of the catalog per se, but how much of it did you know versus you had to learn? In other words, you could hear Hot for Teacher in your head, but did you fully know how to play it and you knew all the intricacies beforehand?
Only I knew I could kind of make up the intro because every drummer that you look up online does their own thing.
Yeah.
And but since I had Greg Bissonette as a teacher, he thought it was something I should know, how to do a shuffle on your feet. Once I got the gig, I just kept saying to my dad, something like if you're a drummer, you should just learn Hot for Teacher, just in case, like you get the call. It's just one of those things you should know. And many cover bands do it. Like that's a special moment in a night when a cover band like Steel Panther pull it off, even though they don't pull it off, they nail it.
Yeah.
You just go, fuck yeah, we're not just doing, Pour Some Sugar on Me. We're going to do something serious here.
Speaking of Steel Panther and Hot for Teacher, I saw a video of Nuno Bettencourt coming up and playing that on the drums. And you go, wait, Nuno plays drums, A. B, Nuno's that good of a drummer. C, he just walked up with no practice up to a kid and played Hot for Teacher.
Right. That's pretty crazy. Wow. I didn't know. When was this?
I think it was still in the LA House of Blues era. So it's like
when
7 years ago.
Right. I used to go there. I don't think I'll get anybody in trouble, but I used to go there when I was underage because of Brett Tuggle. It's my best friend's dad, and we wanted to go. And so Brett would call the lead singer and be like, my kid's coming, put him on the list. And we would get snuck in there and hide in the like top corner.
Yeah.
And we loved it. I was friends with someone who we'd go there every Monday night. This guy, his name is Ryan Cabrera.
Oh yeah. Didn't you drum for Ryan?
I did play drums for Ryan.
Yeah. I knew.
Yeah, I did.
I knew 6 drummers before you was a guy from Long Island that I came up in the punk scene with. What was his big hit? On the Way Down he was the drummer circa On the Way Down. Mm-hmm. And then you got him on the way up.
Well, you know what? that single On the Way Down, the record. I think I might have to pause this and take my out.
No rush. I'm here.
Okay. But I will say, making all these crazy connections, the reason why come here. Give me a kiss. Come here. Come here. Hop up. There he is. The reason why I started playing with Ryan is my friend was dating him, and he found out that my drum teacher was Greg Bissonette, and the drummer on the Way Down is Greg Bissonette.
Wow. Okay.
It was just another session to Greg, checks in the mail. And then, but I went up to Ryan. I was like, do you know Greg Bissonette? And I don't know if you know about this about Ryan Cabrera, but like he made one of the one of the fun parts of his show is that he would take off his guitar and he'd go do a drum solo. Like Justin Bieber did that.
Yeah.
10 years later, he would get behind a purple kit and start doing his thing. But that's how Brian and I bonded was Greg.
I had no. So what the recurring theme that I keep hearing here is not just Greg and Brett having their like hands in everything, but everyone liking these guys, hence them always working. Yes. Now, while I've interviewed Greg before, them being super under the radar. So in other words, they're the guys who are always working, but you don't know that they're always working.
Yes.
And they're not making any effort for you to know that they're always working.
They're too busy. And you know, Greg's been with Ringo fucking Starr for 12 years, 15 years. And what's so funny to me, okay, this has to do with like unlearning the music school stuff.
Yeah.
Is that if you watch Greg play for Ringo, even though Greg worships the Beatles, he still has notes on stage. If you watch Greg Bissonette, there's a little music stand. He's played these songs a million times, and he's flipping through his notes. The next song comes up. Here's the 4-bar intro. Got it. Okay, and he has notes on stage.
So he never stops learning as well. Wow.
Totally. Well, he told me for the Dave gig, I think it's in interviews too. He hid his notes on his toms. He would put the transcriptions for what he had to do on his toms, and he just wouldn't play those two toms. And and Dave never saw that he was reading music.
A similar story I heard related to that. Ron Wixow, who was in the band, I think 93, 94. He's now with Steve Miller. I think he played with Rocket in a band or two, related to Greg Raleigh. So another, journeyman who's played with everyone but is under the radar, Ron Wixow. He was telling a story how I think Dave wanted to put Dance the Night Away back into the set, and he didn't fully know it. So he put the notes, and I think he taped it to the toms, and Dave saw it and got pissed.
Oh yeah. I've got, my ass has gotten saved by other people because Ryan Wheeler, who became the MD, the de facto MD, after Brett had left, and I had taken a piece of tape, I don't know, white gaff tape or whatever the fuck it was, but I wrote on the white gaff tape, because Ryan is on my right, where a floor tom would be for a right-handed setup. And I wrote on a piece of tape, "Hey Ryan, fuck you." And so I've always wanted to have fun on stage. And I think before the Vegas show, I got on my kit for a sound check, and it was gone. And Ryan's like, Ryan was like, I took it off, because if Dave saw that, he'd have a problem with it.
Yeah. Well, you just answered one of my questions. I always was under the impression that Al Estrada was the MD. So Ryan was the MD who took over. Okay.
Right. Well, okay. Oh, I forgot all about Al. Ryan, what happened was Dave just pointed to him and said, "You're in charge." And what that meant was, make sure the guitars are in tune, they're loud enough, my vocals sound a specific way, because we would show up 2 or 3 hours before a rehearsal and make sure that everything is perfect before Dave gets in there.
Yeah.
And that was Ryan's job. And then he kind of took on some more responsibilities, I guess, behind the scenes, working with Dave's engineer, who's no longer, I don't think he works for him anymore, but I already mentioned his name, Tom Sorowski. They would make sure like the harmonicas are in the right, we put like 4 harmonicas on the drum risers in like cup holders, so he can be on any side of the stage and grab the right harmonica. Those sorts of things. We just wanted to make sure that he can get on there and do anything. But that was up, all of that shit was up to Ryan. Make sure it was right.
Was Todd Jensen, the former bass player, still handling his assistant kind of work?
I don't think I ever met anyone named Todd.
Okay. So I have to say, the David Lee Roth organization is almost as secretive and hidden as AC/DC. It's just basically Van Halen, AC/DC. I don't know if anyone else is as shrouded in mystery. Like we could figure out who Kiss's guitar techs are. You know, anyone with a little Googling be like, okay, who's Iggy Pop's personal assistant? Okay, who's Madonna's drum tech? We have no idea. These upcoming Vegas shows, which I'm going to with my wife, we have no idea what songs are being played. Is there an opener? Is it the same exact show that we saw in early 2020? Are there special guests?
I wonder what the philosophy, or I don't even know if, to be honest, I don't even know if that's on purpose, where they go, someone says in the camp, keep it a secret, or that's just the way they roll, where it's like, book the show, the people will come.
Yeah.
Why do we have to even promote it? It's fucking David Lee Roth. And especially after Eddie dying.
Yeah.
Holy shit. This is it, guys. The people that are left standing, it's, like the Beatles. You only have 2 people to go see.
2 people and Pete Best. You have your couple of people.
Yes, correct. I'm in a bowling league with a singer-songwriter and an actor and the actor's dad, but we call ourselves the Beatles. And I'm like the new guy. They've been doing this for 3 years or something like that. And they all have like George, Paul, Ringo, and I'm the new guy. So I was like, okay, there's only one other Beatle because there's 5 bowlers, and I had to be Pete Best. But my jersey says Best on it, even though I'm not the best bowler. Anyway, that was it.
As long as it doesn't say, is it Jimmy McNichol? Is that the guy who replaced? Do you know about this guy?
No.
I think Ringo had to get his tonsils out or his appendix out or something like that in '64. And they had this guy who just toured with the Beatles for a couple of weeks. And I think his name is Jimmy McNichol. So it's kind of like, well, Ringo's home. We need a drummer. We're not canceling. He did these shows. And then Ringo comes back and he has to go back to normal life.
Whew. Honestly, that's fine. I'd do it. I'd be the Jimmy McNichol.
I'm pretty sure it's M-A-C McNichol.
Oh, McNichol. Okay.
Whatever it is, back to you here. You did the Roth gig. That was a couple of months of your life. Zach Tavori, Keith Urban. So the dude's got some credits right here.
The first thing that comes to mind in response to that is A, don't be the asshole, but B, I guess no particular order either, but I never got a gig from having a cool website or a cool Instagram. Everybody that I've played with or for is because I have good relationships with people. They go, oh, is Musselman, what's he doing? And let's bring him out on the road if he's not busy, And that's how I just keep that going. And because I grew up in LA, so everyone kind of knows each other, and we all tried to pursue big dreams and shoot for the stars. So they use me on their projects, and I use them on mine, and it's just that revolving door.
Having gotten to know a lot of Sideman through my past in management and interviewing people and all that, I have some drummers that are friends that are LA based, and I'm not asking for a weird name drop per se, but there's certain people that you trade gigs, that you have your sub gig, like, oh, that person can't do it. I assume you have your sub thing, like, they can't do it, I'll take that on.
Let me think. There's no one that comes to mind right away, because I seriously haven't played, Waldo, I haven't played a show since New Hampshire with Dave and Tips. I haven't played a single show. I've recorded, as I said, with my friends,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't played a show, so I just don't even remember. Who would I call if I couldn't do it? Well, actually, I was with a band named Figs Vision.
Yeah.
And this whole weird world of the fucking aging rockers and their children, their offspring. And so the keyboardist in Figs Vision is Gunner Six, Nikki's.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been in a band. I wasn't the original member. I joined halfway through their journey, but Figs Vision had a residency in LA. That's the name of the band. And I couldn't make it because of the Dave stuff, and I called Zach Tabori. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's a Danny Wagner, if you will. And I sat with him and I taught him the stuff, and he played the gig. I would call Zach, but Zach, we're at this age where we can't just work for the drink ticket.
Yes.
Sometimes you do it because you love the people, but I would call Zach. I don't know. I have musician friends. I don't know. Who would I call? Who would I name drop? I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of anybody. I usually take the gig. I'm pretty available.
Well, there you go. And best place to find you, to contact you, to hire you, because we want to hire the muscle comma man.
Uh-huh.
Is it the Instagram, or is there a best way to find you?
I don't have a website. I just have the Instagram. It's free. It's easy. There's some videos on there. You see my credits. You know my name. I would say Musselman Drums on Instagram. That's where I'm at. I'm pretty laid back. I'm not someone trying to claw my way to be the next Tony Royster Jr., if you know who that is.
Yes.
And he's, but he's got all the gigs and he's amazing. I just kind of cruise along. So I'm there if you want to find me.